Welcome to Alive and Well, the podcast for the new era of high achievers. You're done burning out, and you're ready to lead, work, and live in a rhythm that honors both your brilliance and your body. I'm your host, Michelle Grosser. I'm a trial attorney turned nervous system strategist, and I've lived the burnout story. I know what it's like to chase your goals at the expense of your well-being. And I also know it doesn't have to be that way. Here, we're redefining success. It's where productivity feels peaceful, boundaries feel like freedom, and energy comes from within. Each week, I'll share practical tools for nervous system regulation, time mastery, and somatic strategies so you can show up with clarity, calm, and confidence in every part of your life. Because you, my friend, were given a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind. So here's to life and living it fully. This is the path to feeling alive and well. Let's dive in. Hey, you guys, welcome back to Alive and Well. It's Michelle here. Welcome. Always so good to be with you. On the show today, we're going to talk about something that I think is, one, it's both, I think, really misunderstood. And then second, and it's probably partly why it's so misunderstood, is that it's so under discussed, especially when it comes to women. And that is the emotion of anger. If you guys are anything like me, you may not even have identified yourself as someone who feels anger or experiences anger all that often. I know I talk about this a lot, but for the longest time, before I had kids, and before I really started doing this work and studying and learning about the nervous system, can I just tell you guys, and it's kind of embarrassing to say, but the truth is that I kind of prided myself on being super chill, right? I was like, I don't yell, like my husband and I don't yell at each other. I don't have these outbursts. I don't really snap. I'm not like one of those emotional women, right? I don't really cry at movies or cry at books. And I thought this was a good thing. I was so ignorant and so naive. And I thought that because I wasn't quote unquote angry, at least on the outside, right? That meant that I was, I don't know, even keeled or rational or stoic or what have you. But the truth, what I have learned over the last, 7 or 8 years, is that it's not just that I wasn't feeling angry or that I was super chill. The truth is that I wasn't actually feeling much of anything, right? I had become a master at suppressing and repressing emotions, especially the uncomfortable ones like anger. But underneath all of that calm facade, you guys, whoa, I had a ton of unprocessed anger. And the thing about unprocessed anger is that it is leaky. It will leak out, and it's not pretty when it does. For me, it was leaking out as resentment. It was leaking out as sarcasm, as frustration, as annoyance, mostly toward my poor husband, but also at work, right? I was working at this big law firm. I was working under a senior partner who, was probably toxic, was definitely unreasonable. And what I've learned, both personally and then just from studying the neuroscience, is that when we don't process anger, when we repress it, you guys, when we hold it in and bottle it up or pretend it doesn't exist, no one benefits, especially not us, because suppressed anger takes a massive toll on your nervous system. It will shrink your bandwidth like nothing else. It will drain your energy. It takes so much energy to hold anger in. It's a big emotion, right? It's like, imagine being at the beach in the water, right? Waves coming. You have this big inflated beach ball and you're trying to hold it under the water. Think about the amount of effort that takes, the energy, the focus that takes, right? You can hold it under the water for a little bit, but after a while, your arms are going to start shaking and they're going to get so tired. And eventually that beach ball is going to pop up and it's going to splash on everyone around you. And the same is true with our anger. It takes so much energy to hold that in and it starts leaking out and eventually we pop off, right? It will shrink our bandwidth, drain our energy, and it often shows up in so many ways, like it did for me, that we don't even recognize as anger. So here's what I want to do today. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about 4 ways that unprocessed anger is probably draining your energy and your bandwidth, because if you're experiencing the things that I did, the resentment, the irritability, and the control, that's a first place I would start to look, right? What is my relationship like with big, uncomfortable emotions? So let's talk about it. First, let's talk about the science of anger, right? What's actually happening in our brain and in our body when we hold in these emotions instead of processing them. And then I want to talk about how unprocessed anger tends to leak out, right? Kind of what we were talking about. How does it manifest in your daily life in some of these sneaky ways? Is it showing up as resentment, irritability? Maybe it's showing up as control or passive aggression. And then finally, okay, we have this awareness. I realize what happens in my body when I suppress anger. I'm starting to see how it shows up in other ways. What do I do about it? Right? So finally, let's talk about how we can actually start to process and release some of this anger in a healthy way, in a way that's healthy for us, in a way that's healthy for the people around us, in a way that's supportive for our nervous system. But before we jump into it, I would love to ask you guys, if you have not yet left Alive and Well a 5-star rating and a short review, would you do that for me today? It's just so awesome for me to read your feedback. It's so encouraging and so motivating. And then second, the bigger reason is that it's really how we get this show in front of other women just like you, women who are experiencing a lot of the same things, struggling, facing the same challenges, and who also need these tools and this information just like I did. And just like I know you did, it can be so helpful. So if you've already left a 5-star rating and a short review, thank you. I love y'all so much. I'm so grateful. And if not, if today could be the day that you do it, it probably takes, 15, 20 seconds. I just want to thank you. I'm really grateful. Okay, so let's jump in. Let's start with the science today. So anger is what we call an activating emotion, right? It's part of our threat detection system. It's built into the limbic brain, especially in our amygdala. And when that little alarm system in our brain perceives any sort of threat, right? And that's a keyword, perceives. It's not that we're always in real physical danger, right? We're not necessarily being chased or like our life is being threatened. It could be just that our toddler's having a meltdown in the middle of Target because we're not going to buy them the toy they saw on the shelf, right? Regardless, it's a threat. It's perceived as a threat, and it triggers the same exact response in our body. It triggers a hypothalamus and the HPA axis. That cascade floods our body with stress hormones. We know this, right? Cortisol, adrenaline. What happens in our body, whether it's a real threat to our safety or it's just something perceived as stressful, our muscles tense, our heart rate might increase, right? Our blood pressure might rise, all preparing us to do something to protect ourselves, mobilizing us to fight or to run so we can stay safe. But here's the problem. When you suppress anger, and maybe because there's so many reasons why we suppress anger, especially as women, right? We've been socialized to think that anger makes us, unreasonable, unfeminine, dramatic, crazy, whatever reason we suppress anger. That physiological chain of events that happens in our body, it doesn't just disappear. Those stress hormones, that cortisol, that adrenaline, it's still circulating through your body. The muscles are still tensing, right? Your vagus nerve is still signaling a threat. You've just hit pause on the outward expression of that anger. But internally, that cycle's just looping and it won't finish. And the research supports this. It shows that when we have chronic suppression of anger, it actually lowers our heart rate variability. What does that mean? It means that our nervous system is less resilient. It means that we have less capacity to hold life. It means that every little thing is going to start to trigger us and feel annoying and cause us to snap in a disproportionate response. It keeps our body stuck in a sympathetic activation. It keeps us stuck in fight or flight. What does that mean? It means that if we're stuck in that low grade fight or flight, we have less access to our parasympathetic circuit of our nervous system. That's where we need to be to rest. That's where we need to be to digest. That's where our body needs to be for any sort of recovery immune function, right? Even fertility. So when we actually do process anger, when we don't just hold it in, but we allow it to express, when we cry or yell or hit something or stomp our feet or shake or journal or what have you, we allow that cycle to complete, right? The emotions come up and then we allow them to come out in a healthy way instead of just shoving them back down and continuing to be stuck in that stress loop. Stress hormones metabolize, you guys, when we allow anger to process. Cortisol will metabolize. Adrenaline will metabolize. Your vagal tone will improve. Your nervous system can then return to your baseline. And I say this all the time, but we are in and out beings, right? The air we breathe, it comes in and then it goes out, right? The things we eat, in and out. The things we drink, in and out, right? Emotions are the same way. They're not meant to be held and stored. They're meant to move through. So let's talk about kind of some of the sneaky ways that it does show up when we're not allowing it to release in a healthy way, because anger is so freaking leaky. It will sneak out, right? It's so hard to hold in. So these are 4 ways that I tend to see unprocessed anger manifest most commonly with the women that I work with. And honestly, I've lived all of these myself. So let's go through them one by one, but we're going to talk about resentment, irritability, control, and then passive aggression. Resentment. This is a big one for me, honestly. What is resentment? Resentment is when instead of expressing our anger outwardly, right, and letting it release, we actually turn it inward and we hold it in and we let our anger simmer. And what happens when it simmers is that it turns to resentment. Resentment is that mental tallying, right? It's that scoreboard. It's the way that you're keeping track of what's been done, what hasn't been done, what feels like you when you've done more than your own fair share, right? Whether it's at home or in parenting or the household tasks or cleaning or the mental load or at work, right? When, that coworker who takes credit for your work, or the boss who doesn't acknowledge your contributions or expects things to be done after hours and you do nothing about it. Like whatever it is, it's turned inward and it's not dealt with and it's left to simmer. And this does the same thing physiologically that we just talked about with anger, right? Resentment is low grade sympathetic arousal, right? Instead of the water being turned to boil and just letting it go, it's kept at that low grade simmer and it's just under the surface, right? That anger is just being held there and it's turning into resentment. And it's kind of like our body is holding this, like I'm ready, but I'm restrained type of posture. So we do experience a ton of tension, tight shoulders, clenched jaw, right? Our breathing stays really shallow and quick. It keeps those cortisol levels just running, right? At an elevated level. And over time, that causes us not only to be so incredibly exhausted, but it also causes inflammation in our body. And for me, I think back to early parenthood, like the first few months after having children, resentment showed up big time, right? And I was telling myself that I wasn't angry, right? This was supposed to be the happiest time of my life. We had, an answered prayer in our arms. But I found that I was getting irritated over every little thing. And it's because I was harboring all of this resentment, right? Why am I the only one doing this? Why am I the only one waking up at night? Why am I the only one who knows how to do this? Why am I the only one researching this? And instead of expressing any of that or talking about it or communicating with it or letting my anger about these things come out in any healthy way, I held it in. Because we were supposed to be good and we were supposed to be happy. And this was supposed to be a really special time. And I didn't have the tools to communicate, first of all. And second of all, I didn't have the regulation in my nervous system to trust that I could express emotions like anger and still be loved, right? Still be accepted and still be safe. So what happened? I held it all in and it came up as resentment. And that was bitter, you guys. It was not good. It was so much unspoken anger that I just didn't know how to name. And I certainly didn't know how to release. So I think that's a good place to start. If you're experiencing a season of resentment, if you know, like I know for me that resentment is coming up when I have an urge or an impulse to roll my eyes, right? If that comes up, I got to check myself because there's something going on beneath the surface that I'm either not being honest about, I'm not communicating in a healthy way about, or that I'm feeling and I'm holding it in. I'm actually not allowing myself to feel it and express it. And when that happens to me, if you can relate to that, just naming what you're feeling can be really helpful. And then if you can take it a step further and express that, right? Maybe you express it verbally to the person. Maybe it's expressed through journaling that no one ever sees it, right? Maybe you set up a boundary. Maybe you communicate a need, right? And ask for someone to meet that need and trust that they can do it. And then I'm telling you, get into your body. Do something physical. If it's shaking, if it's stomping your feet, if it's, having an adult temper tantrum, if it's, sometimes I just go sit in my car and like scream or scream into a pillow, shadow boxing, right? Stand in your kitchen and play some rowdy music and just like punch the air, anything to help your body release that activation will be so healing for you. So that's resentment. The second way that I see unprocessed anger showing up is irritability, right? Irritability is usually another mask for anger. It's the short fuse. It's the disproportionate response, right? Snapping at the kids, snapping at the husband, getting frustrated at things we can't control, like this traffic. And it's because our body's in a hypervigilant state. So we're just kind of scanning for threats. And every little annoyance, everything that doesn't go according to plan, every time we're not listened to, all of these things become triggers because our baseline's already elevated. And neurobiologically, irritability is tied to an overactive amygdala and an underactive prefrontal cortex. Let me say that again, because this is like the 1-2 punch of all 1-2 punches. It's tied to an overactive amygdala, which is our alarm system. So when anger is unprocessed, that amygdala stays on high alert, right? Everything is perceived as a threat, whether it's an actual threat or whether it's a small little thing like spilled milk, right? Amygdala is on high alert. Everything seems like a threat because it's overactive. And at the same time, the part of your brain that helps you pause, respond before you react, right? Stay calm, choose your words wisely and kindly. That part of your brain, offline. I mean, think about the 1-2 punch, right? You're holding all this anger in, you're irritable. Neurobiologically, your alarm center in your brain is on high alert, and the part of your brain that lets you show up how you actually want to show up is offline. It's the worst, right? And not to mention, irritability is so contagious. Your nervous system is always co-regulating with the people around you. Their nervous system is always co-regulating with yours. So when you're irritable, I mean, and you don't need me to tell you this, right? Your kids feel it. Your spouse feels it. Your coworkers feel it. The people at your Pilates class feel it. Everyone feels it. And before you know it, it feels like your whole little world is on edge. How can we interrupt this? Again, I think just pausing and naming it. I feel edgy. I feel so annoyed, right? I feel irritable today. And then what can we do physiologically in our body to let some of that release and help ourselves move out of that hypervigilant state and back to our baseline stress level? Y'all know I talk about the physiological sigh all the time. It's my favorite breath because it's so efficient, it's so effective, and it's so quick. And this is how it goes. I'll explain it. If you've been around, you've already done this with me, but let's do it together. Now I'll explain it and then we'll run through it a couple times. You're going to do a double inhale through your nose and then a long extended exhale through your mouth. So it sounds like this. Inhale through your nose. When you get to the top of your breath, another quick inhale. And then you're going to do a long exhale out through your mouth. Let it fully release, long and slow. All right, let's try it together a couple times. In through your nose. When it feels like you're at the top of your breath, another little sip of air, and out through your mouth. Let the shoulders drop, let everything soften. And again, in through your nose. Another quick breath in through your nose at the top and out through your mouth. Let your jaw soften. Let your body just melt. So good. You can do a couple more on your own if that felt good. Maybe you're already noticing just a shift, right? This breath helps us to re-engage that prefrontal cortex, that part of our brain that helps us pause and respond instead of reacting. And it also helps us to calm the amygdala, that alarm center. So that can be really helpful. Okay, the third way that I see unprocessed anger manifest is control. So often, control is unprocessed anger in disguise. So when you feel powerless, when you feel ignored, when you feel disrespected, when you feel unheard, when you feel unprepared, right? All of these different things, anger rises. And if you suppress or deny that anger and pretend everything's good and everything's copacetic and you're going to try to regain that safety by micromanaging, right? You're going to try to regain that safety by over planning. You're going to try to regain that safety by getting rigid with the rules, right? However it shows up. And physiologically, those types of controlling behaviors are linked to a hyperactivation of our fight or flight response, right? Hypervigilance. It's in the anterior cingulate cortex. It's the part of our brain that monitors for errors, right? You're doing it wrong. He's doing it wrong. She's going to do it wrong. I'm going to have to just do it myself, right? This is exactly how you do it and no other way is going to work. Our body is braced and we are just scanning for something to go wrong, for the next shoe to drop, right? For someone to forget something. And I know for me, I saw this big time, especially when I was in the practice of law, because the more powerless that I felt under really unreasonable leadership, the more powerless I felt with, crazy clients, an unreasonable workload, whatever it was, the more controlling or the illusion of control I chased, both at home and at work, right? It turned into like having a list for everything, having a really strict morning routine, evening routine, right? I'd get irritated if plans changed. It was hard for me to be flexible. And it wasn't so much about the list and the organization. It was that there was so much unprocessed anger showing up as the illusion of control. Control felt safe and I was chasing it. So if this resonates for you right now, just soften your body. Can you do that? Drop your shoulders, right? Loosen your jaw. Release the control. Move your body. Your nervous system loves rhythmic moving, right? Gentle swaying back and forth, or just let your arms kind of loosely sway side to side as you're standing. Twist your trunk, right? Maybe it's just a simple forward fold. Drop your arms down, roll your back like you're going over a big wheel, right? One vertebrae at a time, just gently folding forward. Physically, anything you can do to soften and shift your body out of rigidity, right? Out of that tension will really help you loosen the grip on control also. And then finally, passive aggression. If you know when you look in the mirror and you're being honest with yourself that you can tend to be passive aggressive, that is the leak of suppressed anger when you don't feel safe expressing it directly, right? If you feel safe expressing your anger directly, you'll do that. If you don't, it's still going to leak out, but it might look like the eye roll that I was talking about earlier. It might look like the silent treatment, right? It might look like withdrawing. It might look like sarcasm. It might look like, subtle digs here or there where maybe you're like, I don't even know where that came from, right? That's not like me. Because neurobiologically, it's actually the same suppressed fight impulse, but we redirect it sideways. So instead of, confronting and being honest and approaching people in love, right? But sharing how we're feeling and saying what needs to be said, we sidestep. And it keeps our nervous system stuck in this activation. At the same time, it really erodes trust in our relationships. So get it out. Get it out. If you can have the conversation, right? Regulate, shake, prepare some space in your body and go do that scary thing and have the conversation. If you can't have the conversation, right? Maybe you know that nothing good would come from it. Maybe you know that you wouldn't be heard, or you would be gaslit, or you would be made fun of, or the person isn't even around for you to have the conversation with. Write it down, right? Take 5 to 10 minutes. Let yourself just write, free flow, right? Uncentered. This is not like reflecting and writing a couple sentences and reading them back. This is getting the vinegar out of your body, letting the poison release. Say the angry things, say the unkind things, right? Don't censor yourself. Don't judge yourself. Let it out, because if it's in there, it needs to release, and then no one's going to ever see it. I don't care what you do with it. Shred it, burn it, go put it in your neighbor's garbage can, right? Get it out of your body before it, spews out and you end up causing damage to people that are in your circle, right? Can you complete the cycle without damaging your relationships? I think you can. All right. So those are the 4 ways I usually tend to see unprocessed anger leak out: resentment, irritability, control, and passive aggression. Now, before we go, I want to give you guys just a few different super simple practices, really kind of like a brainstorm of things that you can grab and try out the next time you're experiencing anger, which is totally normal and okay, right? How do we process it in a healthy way? Because it's not the anger in and of itself that causes problems. It's that when we don't know what to do with it and we release it and we weaponize it and we harm ourselves or other people in the process, right? That's where anger becomes an issue. So I want to give you guys a few science-backed practices that can be really helpful the next time you're feeling angry. The first one, movement. Move your body. Anger is energy, right? It's energy mobilized for action. So when you're feeling angry about something and you just, sit at your desk all day long, it's just stuck in there and it's simmering. But could you go to the bathroom and complete that anger cycle with shaking your body out? Or could you go into your bedroom and shut the door and just, stand on the rug and start stomping your feet? Or could you put on a really ragey song and just kind of dance and headbang in your kitchen? Can you push against a wall? Can you shadow box? I don't really care how you move your body, but I do know that the research in trauma recovery shows that these types of movements discharge the stress response. So that's number 1, movement. 2, sound, right? When we think about anger, so often we think about yelling. Yes, of course, it's a release. So often anger actually constricts our throat. But if we can help our body release a lot of that tension and that constriction in the throat, we'll help the anger release. Humming, right? Sighing, singing, yelling into a pillow, sitting in your car and yelling. All of that noise and sound through your vocal cords activates your vagus nerve and will help release anger and will help release tension. The third one I have for you guys is prayer. Prayer. I think that for a lot of times, and I've seen and I've heard this, I think that anger can be a very vulnerable or scary thing to just bring to God, right? It's it's just uncomfortable and it can feel icky, but guess what, guys? He can handle it. He can handle it. I don't know about you, but my Bible is full of raw, unfiltered anger. So if you can get honest about your anger is both a spiritual and a nervous system release, right? So if you can get honest about it and lay it down and surrender it, so much freedom will come from that. The fourth one I want to give you is breath work, right? Can you breathe through the anger? If the anger is making you breathe a certain way, right? When we get upset, what can you do intentionally to slow that down? Can you try the physiological sigh that we did together earlier, right? To help downregulate your nervous system. Can you try box breathing? Maybe you have more time and space and you can try box breathing. And the way you do that, you can go on YouTube. There's probably tons of guided box breathing exercises. But think of a box, right? Think of a square, 4 equal sides. you're going to do equally timed inhale, hold, exhale, hold. And just do that for, 1, 2, 3 minutes. Watch what happens to the anger in your body when you box breathe like that for a few minutes. And then the last one is, I think it's so underrated and it's so powerful, and it's imagery, somatic imagery, visualizing, right? Our brain, and we can use this to our benefit, our brain doesn't do a good job of differentiating or distinguishing between the things that are actually happening in and around us and then the things that we're visualizing, right? So we can use that to our benefit. So what we can do is we can actually visualize the anger inside of our body. So however that might look for you, maybe it looks like a fire. Maybe it looks like, a thunderstorm. Maybe it looks like hot coals. Maybe it looks like a really heavy weight. However that anger looks and feels inside of your body, go ahead and visualize it. And then visualize taking that anger out of your body, right? Placing the anger outside of your body, taking it, holding it, right? Leaving it somewhere, transforming it. So maybe if it looks like a fire, you're visualizing taking that fire out of your body and like throwing it into the ocean. Or maybe you're visualizing putting it down and then a big rainstorm comes and puts it out, right? Maybe if you visualize it as a weight, then maybe you imagine that a really strong, heavy wind is coming through and it's kind of disintegrating and blowing it away. However you want to imagine and visualize that anger and then placing it outside of your body, letting it be transformed, that will really leverage your brain's mirror neuron system and help to create a felt sense of release inside of your body. It's so cool. Give it a try. But here's the bottom line. Your anger is not bad, right? It's not dangerous. It's human. And when we suppress it, I promise you, it will drain your energy and it will drain your bandwidth and it will ruin your mood like nothing else. But processing your anger, naming it, right? Moving it, communicating it, feeling it, releasing it, that frees you. So this week, if you notice resentment, if you notice irritability, if you notice control or passive aggression, get curious, right? Is that showing up in my life? Because, and not to judge yourself, but see it as an invitation, right? Can this be an invitation to process the anger that's beneath this resentment, to process the anger that's beneath this irritability or this control, so that your nervous system can return to peace and your relationships can flourish? And if you're interested in this, if you want to go deeper into regulating your nervous system or building these emotional regulation skills, we dive deep into this inside of Burnout Recovery Blueprint. It's my group coaching program. It's 3 months. The next round starts again in January. I think it's an awesome way to start the year, learning how to regulate your nervous system and regulate your emotions. What a gift to yourself and your family, right? And if you're curious, go ahead and hop on the wait list. It's a super simple Google form that I created. You're going to put your name on there. Just give me your email. And that way, you'll have access to early enrollment. We're going to open up a Black Friday sale for Burnout Recovery Blueprint. So the week of Thanksgiving, keep your eyes and ears open for that. But if you're on the wait list, you'll just get emails from me with exclusive savings, exclusive bonuses just for the wait list. So jump on the wait list. There's no big commitment. However, if you are considering Burnout Recovery Blueprint or you know that you want in on the January cohort, it's a no-brainer. Get your name on the wait list so that you can save some money and make sure to save your seat before we fill up for the January cohort. Awesome. Okay, thanks so much for being with me today. I love y'all so much. I'll talk to you soon.
If you love Mommy's Podcast, leave a review.
Thanks for listening to Alive and Well. If today's episode resonated, would you do me a favor? Take 30 seconds and leave a 5-star rating and short review. It really helps to get this show out to other people just like you who could also use the information in this podcast. And if you're ready to take the next step in regulating your nervous system, download my free Nervous System Reset Guide. It's linked right in the show notes. Inside, you'll find simple, body-based practices to help you feel more clear, calm, and connected starting today. Make sure you're following the show so you don't miss out on what's coming next, because you were made to thrive. Fully alive, fully present, and fully well. I'll see you soon.